Hello everyone, welcome to the National Workshop on CSR UGC NET preparation. I am very thankful to the organizers for providing me this opportunity. This is Dr. Vivek Narkhedkar and I am going to discuss in brief a very well known and important topic, that is molecules and their interaction, the beginning of life. Let's just look at the title. The phrase "the beginning of life" may suggest that this talk is going to be on the evolutionary aspects of life, but I am delivering this talk in a very different context. This is the famous experiment which was performed by Louis Pasteur in 1864. There he described that life could not originate spontaneously in the absence of pre-existing life and thus discard the idea of spontaneous generation. Likewise, many more experiments were reported to answer how life might have originated on Earth. So, these are some of the milestone experiments where in 1924, O'Brien-Haldane hypothesis suggests that life arose gradually from inorganic molecules, whereas in 1952, Miller-Urey experiment provided the first evidence that organic molecules needed for life could be formed from inorganic components. Later in 1986, a widely recognized and discussed hypothesis of RNA world came into existence, where RNA was considered as first life due to its self-replicating nature as a genetic material and catalytic efficiencies as a ribozymes. But these are all only scientific ideas about how life might have originated, but none of them is conclusive. Still, one concrete conclusion can be made from all these reports, that there were some chemicals as atoms and molecules which reacts with each other in way or another. They interact with each other to form stable permanent bonds or just exhibit limited temporary interaction among each other. Consequently, all such chemical interactions between molecules ultimately lead to the present day complex life. So ultimately, question arises that what are the possible ways through which this chemical might have interacted? So in this discussion, we will be discussing the various chemical bonds and interaction occurring between molecules that are very much significant and relevant to the biology, or say life. That's why I deliberately use the phrase "the beginning of life" after molecules and their interaction. As you can see here, this is the chemical structure of DNA, where there are many different kinds of chemical interaction. You can see this is the backbone of DNA, which is formed by a phosphodiester bond. So there is a linkage between nucleotides and sugar, which is known as glycosidic bond, and the two anti-parallel strands, they are joined by hydrogen bonds. So these are various kinds of chemical interaction which are present in the DNA, and ultimately you can understand that DNA is the basis of life. So these phosphodiester bond, glycosidic bond, they are covalent bonds and permanent bonds, whereas these hydrogen bonds, they are non-covalent interaction and temporary bonds. Another thing, why I choose the phrase "the beginning of life," because if you want to pursue your career in academics or research by passing CSR UGC NET examination, then you cannot afford to neglect this important topic and such a significant unit from your preparation. If you are beginning this journey of your life, then note that this unit 1 had approximately 17 to 19% share in part B, and in part C it contributes about 9 to 11% in the NET examination. And also, conceptual understanding of this unit 1 is very much essential for studying other 4-5 units out of 13 units of NET syllabus. That's why I chose the beginning of life. So this is the complete syllabus for unit 1 of NET syllabus, molecule and their interaction relevant to biology. From this unit, these are some of the important topics and some subtopics. So today we are going to discuss the first point, stabilizing or non-covalent interaction. Now before we begin to the non-covalent interaction, just have a quick look at the covalent bonding. Covalent bond, also known as molecular bond, is a chemical bond that involves the sharing of electron pairs between atoms. Now why these atoms are sharing electrons to form a pair? Because just to attain the stability, which is described by the octet rule. Octet rule says that every atom tends to attain stability by fulfilling all its vacancies, that is all its electron in the valence shell, outermost shell. As you can see here, this is the atom of chlorine where there is a 7 electron in its outermost shell, and another atom where 7 electron in the outermost shell. Now in such condition, two atoms combine, they come close to each other and they share a single electron, thus forming a pair of electron and achieving its octet and fulfilling its electron vacancy. Likewise, this is the water molecule. This is H having its only single electron, whereas the oxygen has two vacancies for the electron in its outermost shell, and this is another hydrogen. Thus, water with its two electron forms one bond with the one hydrogen atom and another bond with the another hydrogen atom. Likewise, it attains its stability. So again, this is the diagrammatic structure of DNA, where a phosphodiester bond, they are covalent bonding, and glycosidic bond, it is a covalent bond. Now next come to the topic of discussion, stabilizing and non-covalent interaction. There are approximately there are 4 types which are relevant and significant to the biology. First is the ionic interaction, second is the hydrogen bonding, third is the hydrophobic interaction, and fourth one is the van der Waals forces. This arrangement is as per their bond strength. So ionic interaction are more strong as compared to hydrogen bonding. They are more strong as compared to hydrophobic interaction, and the weakest is the van der Waals forces. Now let's see first the ionic interaction. Ionic bonds, they are formed between the cations and anions. Cations means positive and anions means negative. Now they try to achieve more stable electronic configuration through this interaction. If you look at this is the sodium. It has the atomic number 11, so ultimately 11 electrons. And this is chlorine, atomic number 17 and 17 electrons. So sodium loses 1 electron from its outermost shell, and chlorine gain 1 electron in its outermost shell. So sodium attain a positive, net 1 positive, and chlorine attains net 1 negative. So this positive and negative, they can interact with each other and they form a NaCl, and by their continuous interaction, this is the crystal of NaCl. If you look at this periodic table, in the periodic table, these are the electropositive atoms, and this side there is a electronegative atoms. So these atoms have a tendency to lose the electron and attain a positive charge, that's why they are cations, and they have tendency to gain the electrons and to attain a net negative charge, they are anions. Likewise, they can form an ionic interaction. Now where we can find this ionic interaction in biological system? We know that our body consists of maximum part of fluid. Water is present everywhere. So in the water there are various kinds of ions, or say electrolytes. So one of the example is NaCl. Here you can see NaCl, which consists of sodium positive and chlorine negative. Now when this NaCl is dropped into the water, it gets dissociated into Na positive and Cl negative. Now this Na positive can interact with the oxygen negative of water molecule, and chlorine negative can interact with the hydrogen positive with the water molecule. Because of this interaction, sodium chloride, that is NaCl salt, is soluble in the water. Any compound which can interact ionically with the water, that means with positive and negative charges, is soluble in the water. That's why our body consists of various kinds of electrolyte in dissolved state. Again, you can see this is the glutamic acid and lysine. They are amino acids. In the amino acid also one positive charge at NH3 positive, and there is a negative charge. So both of them can interact with each other and can form a temporary ionic bond. Again, example of amino acid, aspartic acid and arginine. They can also interact with each other by forming a positive negative interaction, that is ionic interaction. Now come to hydrogen bonding. Now this hydrogen bonding arises due to the large difference in the electronegativity. We can say that when any hydrogen atom comes between two electronegative atoms, hydrogen atom comes between two electronegative atoms, and hydrogen is attached to one atom by covalent bond and comes in very close proximity to the other electronegative atom. In such condition, hydrogen is capable of forming hydrogen bond. Likewise, you can see these are the two water molecules where this hydrogen is covalently linked with oxygen and it has come nearer to the oxygen of another water molecule. So in the water molecule there is a hydrogen bonding. If you look at the periodic table, in the periodic table the electronegativity increases when we move from left to the right of periodic table, and when we move from upside to the down, then electropositivity increases. So most of the elements which are present here, nitrogen, oxygen and these halogens, they show a stronger electronegativity because they have the vacancy in their outermost shell and they can accept an electron, and that's why they are more electronegative as compared to this one. So this last column, it consists of noble gases. They're all in their outermost shell electron, they are fulfilled. That's why they do not undergo any kind of chemical reaction. Of course there are some exemptions, but they are not readily undergoes any kind of chemical interaction. Now where we can find this hydrogen bonding in biological system? Again, just take the example of amino acids. Here glutamic acid and lysine, they are two amino acids, and this amino acid can form hydrogen bond. Here this hydrogen is covalently linked with nitrogen and it has come in close proximity to the oxygen. Again, this hydrogen is covalently linked with nitrogen and comes in close proximity to the oxygen. That's why it is capable of forming hydrogen bond. Now take this example of ice. Ice is nothing but the H2O molecule where there is a compact arrangement. Now just understand that when water is in liquid state, that is in aqueous state, at that time a single water molecule can undergo interaction and form a 4 hydrogen bond at any given time, but only 3 hydrogen bonds, they are in continuation, whereas a 4th hydrogen bond is forming and breaking. That's why because of such type of dissociation and association of hydrogen bond, a water shows a fluidity, it shows the movement, whereas in case of ice all the hydrogen bond they are formed. That's why in the ice there is no movement in the water molecules. Now here this is the alpha helix and beta appreciate sheet. Now these two represent the secondary structure in protein. The primary structure of protein is nothing but the aliphatic chain, and these are the secondary structure. In the alpha helix the amino acids are arranged likewise, and these side chains of amino acid interact with its appropriate side chain in the another turn of the helix and they forms hydrogen bond, and because of such hydrogen bonding alpha helix attained its conformation and stability. Similarly, we can see in beta pleated sheets here a one strand and side chain of amino acids can interact with the another strand side chain of the second strand. So because of their interaction they can all form such hydrogen bond, and because of such hydrogen bond beta pleated sheets attain stability. A tertiary structure of protein is a combination of alpha helix and beta sheets. If you know the protein trafficking and sorting, in that condition you might know that when any particular form protein reach to the organelle, at that time that protein enters into the organelle through channels, and while entering into the channels it is not possible for all the proteins to enter with its right conformation. That's why this protein get changes in its conformation and then it enters into the organelle. For that there is a chaperones. Now this chaperones changes the conformation of protein and allow its entry inside the organelle, and after entry this protein again form its conformation. Now this arrangement and disarrangement of the conformation is just because the feasibility of hydrogen bonding between the amino acid chains. As this hydrogen bonding is just formed by coming in close vicinity with the another electronegative atom, so they are easy to break and easy to form. So protein naturally attain its configuration. Again, this is the structure of DNA. In this, a thymine and adenine. Thymine and adenine, they form a double hydrogen bond, whereas cytosine and guanine, they form a triple hydrogen bond. Now in the two anti-parallel strands of the DNA, there is a possibility of forming hydrogen bond, and as we know that hydrogen bond is the weaker bond. That's why DNA can get unwind easily by the action of enzyme, and when the replication completes, then again it can form its natural conformation. Now consider if there is no temporary interaction and the joining is by permanent interaction, then it is not possible to replicate the DNA. Nature has chosen such bonding where there is a temporary interaction which can be associated and dissociated. Now next come to hydrophobic interaction. Now it described the relation between water and hydrophobes. Hydrophobes are nothing but the non-polar molecule. The behavior of these hydrophobes or fat droplet in water is also related with the enthalpy and entropy of the reaction. Now first understand the term enthalpy, entropy and gives free energy. Enthalpy is nothing but the total heat content of the body, whereas entropy is the randomness in the molecules, and gives free energy is energy available to do useful work. Now how these thermodynamical terms are related with hydrophobic interaction. Now let's take this case where this is the water and hydrophobes, that is fat droplets, are dropped into the aqueous system. Now when they come into the contact with the water molecule, they make space for themselves. Thus, by disturbing the hydrogen bonding present inside the water molecule. Now when this hydrogen bonding inside the water molecule get disturbed, ultimately randomness in the molecule is getting disturbed. That's why change in the entropy is negative. And when such fat droplets enter into the water, at that time water molecule cover completely around a hydrophobe and it forms a cage-like structure. This cage-like structure is called as Clathurate cage. Now in this Clathurate cage, the arrangement of water molecule is well defined. That's why again the randomness in the molecule is decreased. So delta S, change in the entropy, is negative. Now when hydrophobe enter into the water, now because of the entry of hydrophobe into the water, the hydrogen bonding present between the water molecule is disturbed. As they broken down, the energy is released in the hydrogen bonding and it get trapped into the cysteine. And because of this, the change in the enthalpy is negative, whereas the change in Gibbs free energy is positive. Likewise, when hydrophobe enter into the water system, the reaction is overall non-spontaneous. But when, because of hydrophobic interaction, when these fat droplets, they communicate with each other, they come close to each other, at that time the Clathroid cage broke down around the two hydrophobes. As you can see here, this is the Clathroid cage of two droplets. Now when they come close to each other, at that time the Clathroid cage broken down. So as they are broken down, again the hydrogen bonds are broken and the energy is released. Now when the hydrophobes comes in contact with each other, they form by the interaction of hydrophobic type of interaction, and the randomness in the molecule as compared to this type of arrangement has increased. So ultimately, change in the entropy is positive, change in the enthalpy is positive, whereas the change in the Gibbs free energy is negative. Overall, the reaction is spontaneous. This is how thermodynamics works in hydrophobic interaction. Now where we can find this hydrophobic interaction in biological system? Everybody might have seen such type of water movement on the leaf surfaces. Generally such leaves are present in the hydrophytes, or in terrestrial habitat you can see such water movement on the leaf in the Calotropis procera. When water is fall down on the leaf, it doesn't settle on the one place. It can move from one place to another because it doesn't get attached to the leaf surface. As the leaf surface is coated with the wax is nothing but a chain of hydrophobes, CH3, CH2, CH3, only C and EH atom maximally. That's why water doesn't interact with the leaf surface. So it shows the hydrophobic type of interaction. Again, in the structure of DNA, we can see the importance of hydrophobic type of interaction. In the structure of DNA, this is the phosphodiester bond which shows the negative charges, and here also phosphodiester bond which shows the negative charges. These negative charges present in the backbone of DNA, they are interacting with the external surface inside the nucleus. So the interaction with the external surface, external environment, most of it is the nucleoplasm liquid phase, is feasible with this negative charge on the backbone of DNA. But whereas in the center there is a nucleotide bases. These are nothing but the rings of carbon and hydrogen with some heteroatoms such as oxygen and nitrogen. Because of presence of carbon and hydrogen, it shows the hydrophobic behavior. So nature has chosen such type of arrangement where these hydrophobes, they come inside the DNA or at the core of the DNA. That's why avoiding their contact with the hydrophilic environment. So by this also we can understand the significance of hydrophobic interaction in biological sciences. Now take the another example of protein conformation. This is the unfolded polypeptide, or you can see a primary structure of protein. In primary structure of proteins, here this blue tags, it represent the polar side chains, that means they are hydrophilic, and green structure shows non-polar side chains, means they are hydrophobic. Now when this primary structure of protein change its conformation and converted into a tertiary structure of protein, at that time all the hydrophobic side chains, that is non-polar side chains, they get trapped inside the core of a protein. You can see here a green color is enclosed inside the protein surface, whereas at the outer side periphery there is a hydrophilic or blue polar side chains. So that's why this protein can remain freely in the aqueous phase of the cell and can interact with its external environment, and the site which cannot interact with the hydrophilic molecules, it get trapped inside the core of a enzyme. This is how a hydrophobic interaction is very much essential in biological system. Now come to the last and the weakest type of interaction, that is van der Waals forces of interaction. In the van der Waals forces, it is driven by induced electrical interaction between two or more atoms or molecules that are very close to each other. The prerequisite condition for forming the van der Waals forces of interaction is the closeness between the atoms. Now this van der Waals forces interaction is the weakest of or intermolecular attraction, as I said earlier. To understand this, first let's have a look at the structure of atom. In the structure of atom, this is central positive nucleus, and these are the orbital for revolution of electrons. Now here electrons are revolving in the electron orbital or cloud. Now when these electrons are revolving around the positive nucleus, then suddenly at any given time, for a time instance, there comes a condition when this electron cloud is at half one side of the atom. In such condition, when such atom comes in a close proximity of another atom, at that time, for the time instance when electron cloud is at the one side, so this electron cloud attract the positive nucleus of another nearby atom. That's why it creates or it induced a dipole in the neutral atom. Dipole means having of both charges, positive as well as negative. But here initially the atom was neutral, there was no charges, but because of a revolution of electron around the positive nucleus, suddenly for a time instance a space comes when the electron cloud has shifted toward the one side and it comes in contact with the nearby atom. So that electron cloud attract the positive nucleus of that nearby atom. That's how there is a induction of dipole. And as the now dipole has induced, now they start interacting with each other. But you can understand that there is no initial interaction. Now this type of interaction has occurred just because of the random movement in the electron in its electron cloud. That's why this interaction is weakest of all the type of interaction. Now where we can find this van der Waals forces in the biological system? The most significant is the plasma membrane. This is the structure of plasma membrane. Actually plasma membrane is a bilipid layer. This is the single lipid layer of plasma membrane. So blue sphere represents the hydrophilic head and the yellow represents the hydrophobic tail. This hydrophobic tail, they are nothing but a continuous chain of carbon and hydrogen, CH2, 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 and at the terminal end there is a CH3. Now when this is the saturated fatty acid chain, at that time all these chains, they can interact with each other by van der Waals forces of interaction, as they are in very close proximity. So these atoms can come close to each other and dipole can be induced. That's how they can interact. But when there is a formation of or presence of double bond in side chain, at that time a chain get bends from a place where the double bond is present, and because of presence of that double bond, it interrupts the van der Waals forces between two hydrophobic chains, and that's how easily it can be broken down. Otherwise the plasma membrane shows the van der Waals forces of interaction. A similar kind we can see in the proteins also. These are the two subunits of protein in their tertiary conformation. Now these are the proteins in their tertiary conformation. This protein in this portion shown here in the red color, This is the hydrophobic region. Hydrophobic region, that means the amino acid which are present in that region, the side chain of this amino acid is hydrophobic. Now as they don't have any type of charges, positive or negative, they cannot interact with each other with any previous type of interaction. In such cases, the carbon and hydrogen atoms which are present in the side chains of this hydrophobic amino acid, they comes to each other and they get attached by forming a induced dipole interaction called as van der Waals forces of interaction. That's how in the quaternary structure of proteins we can see a different subunits of the protein in their tertiary structure, they can interact with each other. Now another interesting case of van der Waals forces of interaction is this creature. This creature is known as gecko, or in just simple term you can call a lizard or reptile. Now you might have seen this creature creeping on the wall, walking on the wall, but it never falls down. Even though it starts running, it never falls down. Now why this creature forms such a strong grip? How this creature is capable of forming such a strong grip on the wall surface? The answer is van der Waals forces of interaction. Now how van der Waals forces works here? In this case, the fingers of the lizard or gecko, it consists of very microscopic hairs. Now these microscopic hairs, they have a very tiny structure. Now this tiny structure can interact with the molecules which are of wall. Even this creature can freely move on a smooth surface of glass or plastic also. How this is possible? Because the tiny microscopic hairs present on the limbs, fingers of this gecko can interact with the atoms of the wall or say glass surface. And now when they interact, and as they are tiny, they comes in very close contact with each other, and because of their closeness in the atom, it forms a van der Waals forces of interaction. As we have seen in the initial slide, when two atoms come close to each other, then only van der Waals forces of interaction came into play. Likewise, this happened in gecko's case when the limbs of gecko, which consist of tiny microscopic hair, comes in close contact with the atoms of wall. At that time, it shows a van der Waals forces of interaction. Although van der Waals forces, they are weakest in the nature, but as the microscopic hairs present on the limbs, they are millions in numbers, and the atoms on the wall, they are also in millions. So because of this millions interaction, the grip of this gecko is very strong on the surfaces. This is how van der Waals forces plays a significant role in biological system. Till now we have seen 4 kinds of interaction. In this, first was the ionic interaction, second was the hydrogen bonding, third was interaction, fourth one is the van der Waals forces of interaction. Now because of 4, the biological system is functioning and operating at its optimum level. Again, just to understand the importance of this non-covalent interaction, just take the example when our body receives any type of stimulus, and because of stimulus, body start responding in a particular way. Now consider, what if the signal get covalently or permanently bonded to the cellular receptor? In such case, the body will continuously keep on responding with respect to the received stimulus, although external environment might have changed, but as the stimulus or is attached to the receptor of the cells, ultimately body get exhausted because it is continuously responding to the external stimuli. That's why nature has chosen a non-covalent temporary stabilizing interaction, so that signal will remain attached until it is required and can be easily removed by the action of some proteins or enzyme, so that unnecessary energy investment in the response of the body can be curtailed or cut down. If you have any query, then you can contact, and thank you.